Our next performer is also my co-MC, Rob Seitz, and I could read a lot about him, but this is all he gave me. Been fishing a long time. Good enough. Please welcome Rob Seitz.
They say never start out with an apology. But I'm going to start out with a warning. Because my Fisher poetry is so realistic, it's even been known to cause a seasickness-like feeling in those listening. So if you start feeling a little queasy, don't worry, it's not the seafood fettuccine. It's just the poetry. Okay, the guy we get our oysters from requests this every year, so when your oysters are as good as his, when the oyster guy gets what the oyster guy wants. So this one is called 2.5 gallons per flush. It's a poem I wrote about, I started fishing for my grandfather up in the Cook Inlet in Alaska, and my brother was the other deckhand, and this is one of the aspects of boat life that took a little getting used to. 2.5 gallons per flush. Grandpa's old wooden fish boat wouldn't have been complete without that 5-gallon bucket outfitted with a toilet seat. You'd just fill it half full of water straight from the deck hose, apply the seat, and assume the pose. There was no plumbing to go awry. When you were done with your business, you just dumped it over the side. Well, them saddle bronc cowboys have nothing on me, 'cause I've rode that bucket in 40-foot seas. In weather like that, it was quite a ride. Pants around your ankles, sliding side to side. The water from the bucket would get your backside drenched, kind of like them toilets designed by the French. Yeah, to ride that bucket, you had to swallow some pride, but it sure beat the hell out of hanging your cheeks over the side. Thanks. Okay, that was my best one, so if you didn't like it, you got enough time to make it somewhere else. Okay, Doug requested this one. Sometimes I write poems about the fish I catch, and this is one of them. I call it Petrale Soul, spelled S-O-U-L. The exquisite Petrale soul is like the yin-yang sign of the sea. They have their dark, mysterious side, the other white as purity. They remind me that death creates life and ugliness defines beauty. But when you cook them in olive oil and garlic, both sides taste the same to me. Thanks. Okay, so here over the course of they're trying to, what is it? The Magnuson-Stevens Act. They're, it's the piece of legislation that governs the management of our fisheries, and in it, there's protections for the fish, but there's also protections for the fishing communities, or they're supposed to pay attention to the fishing communities when they're making their management decisions. But there's some, there's been some interest in defining what a fishing community is. So I was thinking about fishing community, and that's what I came up with this poem. I don't think Noah's going to use it, but we'll see. My fishing community. If you make your busted knuckle living as a harvester of the sea, and a lifetime of staring at it through bloodshot eyes hasn't dulled the ocean's mystery. If you fish so as to protect the resource for fishers yet to be, and your code is to overlook disagreements on land until those in trouble have reached safety. If your opinions of others are not based on gender or race, but rather heart, brains, and ability, and the interaction of boat, crew, gear, weather, ocean, and fish is a form of poetry. If you have long-term friendships with VHF voices whose face you've never seen, and you still get excited while untying the lines for next trip's possibility. If you believe each life you take is your responsibility, and that the wasting of fish is a sin is your philosophy. If you've worked your way up through the ranks with guys named Outback Jack and Hillbilly Steve, and you've acquired true stories that no one on land ever really believes. If you kiss the wife and kids goodbye for the last time each time you leave, and you slide the boat out of the slip because there's a world you gotta feed. If you tell your crew the only kind of wine you want goes well with a bit of cheese, and a lifetime of financial ups and downs have taught you to think on your feet. If you rarely afford the luxuries in life, but always have the best food to eat, and even though it's a tough living to make, no other way can really compete, then you know there ain't a lot of rich folks living there, but it's a wealthy community. Thank you. Okay, I tell younger guys that you only have to be good once. And that's when you're trying to talk the right lady into marrying you. Because if you're successful at that, you don't have to worry about anything. Anyway, I wrote this poem for my wife because back in the old days when I spent most of my time at sea and we had kids to raise and you know, all the stuff that you have to do on land, and I was rarely there, so she had to do most of it, you know. So anyway, I wrote this to, I guess, to say thanks to my wife and let people that don't fish, you know, give them an idea what how the household operates. I call this family dynamic. When I get on the boat and I point her out to sea, I always remind the crew, this ain't no democracy. I don't want no misbehaving, and don't you give me any lip, because this here fishing vessel is a dictatorship. My word is law, and I'll bend their will to mine. If it ain't so now, it will be in short time. But back on land, all my authority is lost. It's just like my kids say, at home, mommy is the boss. Now I've heard all those theories about who should wear the pants, but when dealing with matters of town, my wife has a better grasp. Like a lot of fishermen's wives, she's smarter than the guy she's married to, so it only makes good sense for her to rule the roost. She runs a real tight ship. It could pass any inspection. The slightest piece of dust or dog hair is beyond my detection. See, I've crossed breaking bars, been in the worst storms you've ever seen, but that stuff don't scare me half as much as neglecting to keep the bathroom clean. But she's a loving mother, but she'll stand for no infraction. Homework is as disciplined as a military action. She's the primary reason we're still afloat. She keeps the books and welds on the boat. She has so many skills, the original multitasker, but she ain't one to brag, so don't bother to ask her. The pace at which she works is staggering to see. If I ran my crew that hard, they'd probably mutiny. So I'll be the boss at sea, and she'll be the boss in town. I think those fish are lucky it ain't the other way around. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to do this one. I wrote this a long time ago. Our youngest boy was 4th grade, and he had just started playing football. And we were sitting there waiting for his first game to start in my truck, and pouring down rain, and I could tell he was kind of nervous because it was the first game, and we're sitting there watching the other team arrive, and he looks over at me and he says, "Dad, you think those kids on the other team eat farmed salmon?" I was like, "Yeah, they look like a bunch of farmed salmon eaters to me." Okay. So I call this football food. If it's true what they say, and you are what you eat, my boy, with his ling cod-fueled tenacity and stamina, is going to go through your boy like a hot knife through partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and leave him laying there like some disease-laden feedlot cow, staring stupidly, wondering what just happened. Now, it's not my place to tell anyone how to raise their kids, but I hope someone will build their boy out of ling cod too, because my boy is going to need someone to play with. Thanks. Okay, the wife says I got time for one more quickie. So most of the guys I worked for coming up through the ranks had two main motivational techniques. The first one was yelling at you, and that only works as long as you're willing to sit there and yell at them. And then the other one was tell them how good you were when you were their age. So I call this one when I got the idea for this poem right when I got done yelling at my deckhand about how good I used to be at his job. It's called When I Was a Younger Man. Boy, I'm getting tired of all your whining and carrying on about how this trip is too hard, or about how this work is too hard and this trip is lasting too long. So I want you to sit right there while I relate a story to you about how to do your job the way I used to do. See, we didn't need hydraulics when I was a younger man. Nah, they just slowed me down. I pulled all our pots by hand. And when it was time to put them on the boat, you didn't hear me complaining about my back. I'd just frisbee them pots up to the top of the stack. And one time we blew a head gasket on the way to the tuna grounds. I had that thing swapped out before the captain even got the engine shut down. And when it comes to sewing web, I'm faster than you with my feet. For splicing cable, I use my marlin spike tongue and vice grip teeth. But we didn't feed our captain out of a box the way you younger generation do. Now, my gastronomic creations were worthy of the cordon bleu. And before the cooking was even done, I'd have that galley cleaned to such 1,000 candle power shine that you'd have to put on your sunglasses when you wanted to come inside. Then there's the time I got bit by a shark. I just flexed and broke all his teeth. A fate worse than death for him. Now tofu sea lion is all he can eat. When we left on the trip, we couldn't call home for a hound dog's age. You young guys start sniveling if your smartphones won't let you update your Facebook page. Are you hearing what I'm telling you, son? When I eat an oyster, I don't even shuck it. I once drank battery acid, ate gunpowder, just to see if I could blow up a 5-gallon bucket. Now I suppose you're thinking you'll never top me. And you're probably right, I ain't gonna lie. But don't let that stop you. You're highly encouraged to try. Thank you.